The Environmental Service, Public Works, and Building Committee to order. And Justice McGrew, would you say?
I will. Let's pray. Father God, you are the giver of all things, and for that we are thankful, Lord. Thank you for just allowing us to have a beautiful day, Lord. I pray that you will be with us as we make decisions moving forward that are in the best interest of our county, Father. And I pray that you'll bless each and every one who's here. Help us to get home safely. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Judge, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'd like to welcome Mr. John Rogers with Crafton and Toll. See what he's got in line for us. Whatever suits you.
You can take the mic with you.
Hey, John, you want me to stand up there and I don't know exactly what I'm going to know. I don't know. There's several files there I'd like to look at. All right. So,
remind me later, John.
Better hit that pretty quick. Okay, thank you. My name's John Rogers with Crafton and Toll, just down the street, and appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Didn't know I was main event, but I'm glad we got the audio video going. So anyways, thank you for your time. I will be brief. There's a couple items I want to hit. Mainly, the first item is our expansion at the Garland County landfill. I want to talk about that. I want to show you some documents that we have on it. And then I would like, as a second event here, I'd like to just quickly list, maybe we could do some details about this second list at another meeting, but I'd like to list all the things that we're doing behind the scenes for the county, the environmental parts of the county. And so I just want to hit that list, some goals that we have, some housekeeping that we'd like to do to be compliant with our permits, with state and local, our own permits, and some state permits. But hit that list so you can be aware at least of the title and the names of the things that we're trying to accomplish by the end of June. So we'd like to do that. So Garland County landfill expansion, and then we'll hit a list of some things that we're working on behind the scenes. So, let me orient you where we're at on the landfill. Let's see. Okay, so how to zoom. We might have some.
I'm sorry about that.
We might have some technology gremlins in the house. So, all right, I'm gonna try to move it. Let's just see if we can. Okay, so I'm sorry if it's hard to read, but let me stay on the other side so our members can see better than looking at me. Very good. So page is north, oriented north up. What's off the screen here below is where you come into the landfill, and we've all been there. You come across the scales, and as you come off the scales, you can go to the transfer station on the right, or you can go meander down the hill, which we call the facility access road for the landfill facility. And so that's where this picks up. We've come down the hill, past the transfer station on the right, and the large permitted pond, facility pond, National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, federally permitted pond on the left. So facility access road starts here. Yeah.
Touchscreen, John, just pull it up.
Yeah, I do too. See if I can hit it this way. No.
It's wanting to send you a.
Verifying code.
That's funny. Oh, well. So Celiac Road, access road, you come in. And then what we do right now in our operations is we make a right turn and we come around the landfill, and you can barely make out this road here, the perimeter access road. Yeah. So the contrast here, this white is the gravel perimeter road. And so these black lines are 1 foot interval contours. So that's where our waste mass is that we're filling. And so about 1.5 years ago, we finished the expansion of the cell, waste disposal cell, a permitting event at the landfill. At the northernmost tip, it's about 3 acres with a qualified liner to protect groundwater, and so that was acceptable. We've put a little bit of waste in there, quite a few shingles with the demo work that's going on, and so that process has been phase 1, which is in this blue area, and then this blue outlined area is phase 2. So we're working in phase 1 and phase 2 since 2021, since February of 2001. I'm sorry, February of 2001. So we've been in phase 1 and phase 2. That's a good takeaway point. What we want to do, what we've recently taken bids on, is to expand into phase 3. And so that is this blue outline here. It's about 9 acres, and it advances easterly towards Cedar Glades Road, although you can't see it from Cedar Glades Road, but that's the direction that the landfill expands. So phase 1, phase 2, active. Phase 3 is proposed, which we're presenting tonight. And then phase 4 is this wedge here in blue. And then the final phase is we've gone clockwise here, is in phase 5. So that's orientation. Any questions?
I don't have access to map or something.
Yeah, I think this is going to limit me. So I'm going to close it. No, can't do
I'll
that.
close the matter up on that.
Yeah, it's just not going to let me get past that screen. Do we know, is Mr. or Mrs. King here? So we've got, again, there's 5 phases with the landfill. It's about a 50-year lifespan. We've been working in phase 1 and 2 for the last 20 years, and we're expanding. We're proposing to expand in phase 3.
Okay, I think it's off now.
Very good. Oh,
Bye. I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. So one nice feature about this, the landfill is ran very well, and the state recognizes this, ADEQ, Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. So that's a real testimony to the judge and Billy Sawyer and all those behind the scenes making the decisions here with the landfill. So it's what we've done is we've thought ahead, and we know that we're going to fill phase 1 and 2 up. Primarily, we're working in phase 2, but we can fill into phase 1. We know that we'll exhaust that in about 3 years. And all of that has been mapped when we got permitting, the soil balance, how much we have to do weekly cover at a minimum on our waste for a variety of reasons. But that calculation, as well as all of our volumetrics has been, oh good, has been calculated in the permit 20 years ago. And so we're on pace. The last 3 years has seen an acceleration of waste disposal. And so we're saying that we have about 3 years in phase 1 and 2 before we need to get into phase 3. So it's real timely. We're not hair on fire to get this phase open, but it's a good to point that direction. The process is big. Is three major milestones to get phase 3 open for the public to put waste disposal in there. So 3 major milestones that we need to do. Number 1 is execute the bids for. So we did this set of plans, and it's 224 pages. I need to get to page. I need to get to page like 170. And so, and there was also 2 addendums, but we won't try to pull that up. But we recently did this bid, and so the bids range from $1 million to just under $3 million. We had 6 participants, and so the engineer estimate was around 1.6 million, and our low bid came in was Garrett Excavation on the 13th. I'm sorry, on the 12th, March 12th, and it came in at just under $1 million. And we got a good contractor that's quite capable, and I've talked to him. He plans to bring in a D11, a Caterpillar D11, and so there's some ripping of rock involved with this 100,000 cubic yards of soil that we need to move. 100,000 cubic yards of soil that we need to move to prepare for waste disposal. So 3 things we need to do so we can get phase 3 open. Number 1 is we need to confirm this contract to move this mass amount of earth. All right. The second thing that we need to do is install, and which is we're not planning to do this until summer. The second thing we need to do is install piezometers. And so the state is asking us, and we're committed to installing 3 piezometers, and we're going to monitor those for 12 months. And so what we're measuring is groundwater, the elevation of the groundwater below our bottom of our landfill. So it's really important that we prove that we have separation hydraulically from our waste mass, our protective low permeability liner, and then we have a sufficient distance to any high seasonal rainwater in our aquifer system. So that's the second thing we need to do. And the third thing is, so the first thing is move a mass amount of earth. Second thing is install piezometers. And the third thing is we want to install that liner, the clay liner for this cell. And so I told you that earlier that the phase 3 is about 9 acres. And so that's the 100,000 cubic yards of soil that we need to move. The cell where we'll put waste initially in phase 3 will be much smaller than that. It'll probably be 3, maybe 4 acres. And we'll bite off just enough that we can manage putting in clay at a real wet roll and knead the clay in to get our compaction and our permeability thresholds. So that's the third thing that we need to do is actual construction of the cell. The second thing we'll do is piezometers and monitor for 12 months. And then the first thing we're doing is what I presented to you is this mass phase 3 earth moving.
What page was that?
Say 172. You'll highlight it. There you go. I hope I'm right with that.
think we're good now.
Okay, I'm gonna go up one. Yeah. So, very helpful. Thank you, Susan. Okay, so this is a neat graphic. I hope you can read it. I'm gonna try to step out of the way. So same orientation, north is up. We got phase one, and these are our little cells that we were approved by ADEQ up to this line which is our phase one, to put waste in. These cells are varying in shape and sizes. It was a different time and a different development code that we were adhering to, and they're based on economics. It's not economical to build an 8-acre cell for disposal, so we build smaller ones. We got, again, it was a little bit different development code, but these are a little small. So we got in phase two, we got a little more organized, and we did 4 cells in phase two. And so currently we're in phase 2, cell 4, which completes phase 2. And so we're proposing to move right here, which is 9 acres, phase 3. And so this 300 pages is a specifications of what to do with all this dirt. Put it here in this orange area, seed it, have some erosion control, and then there's details on what all the sections and the slopes are to look like at the end. So all of that is quite controlled and specified in a lot of detail. Thus, it's $1 million to build, but it's a good price, very competitive, and we're proud of where we're at and what we're presenting to you. Any questions on the landfill? Yes, sir.
Does that dirt go back on top once a section is finished? Is that what you?
We do. We can, if it qualifies, if it has all the grain size characteristics on the soil. It tends to get, as we've moved this way, our soil has gotten very shale and rock, and so that's a little coarse for our bottom liner. We want to, and our cover materials, what you asked about. What we use it for is access. Temporary access and permanent perimeter road access. It's great road building material that's coming out of there. We use it for weekly cover. And also, it's really important, for weekly cover, we keep the birds down. We keep the wind from blowing debris. And one thing that we do really well at our landfill is our working face, our disposal face isn't just, sometimes when I drive to Jacksonville and through North Little Rock, I see some of those, that landfill is just got a huge working face. And that's not what we have here. We keep a real tight, small working face. And so that material is what we'll put on if we get a lot of waste. And we may put it in there more than once a week. So we exhaust it. If you look at the big picture of the excavation, while we're moving a lot of dirt in phase 3, more than we've done in any other phase, there's a deficit in soil for the entire life of the landfill. If we look at it at a 50 to 60 year lifespan, there's a deficit in soil. So we want to stockpile as much as we can and not squander it. And that's what we're going to do here in this orange area in phase 5, is stockpile there. So in summary, phase 1, phase 2, we've got about 3 years of waste disposal left. That was an important question, Judge. The numbers show 5 years, but we have to have a working platform. We have to have area for our the public to turn around, and we don't want to be filling, think of this in 3D. We don't want to be filling in wedges and with lots of survey control. And so it's just, operations are much more efficient and easier if we're not just trying to be perfect, because there's a vertical limit. Anywhere you're at on the landfill, there's a vertical permit limit to our waste filling, and we cannot exceed that. That's the most egregious thing that we can do. And so if we say, the numbers are saying we got 5 years of disposal in phase 1 and 2, but realistically, because of operations, we have 3. And then when we move into phase 1, there's 3 milestones. Number 1 is the mass earth moving. Number 2 is installing groundwater measuring wells, piezometers, and monitor that for 12 months. And milestone number 3 is to actually pick out an area, something like the size of phase 2, cell 3 here, but pick out an area, 3 or 4 acres, and it's everyday quality control, quality assurance to make sure that liner is what is acceptable at the bottom of our landfill, because there may be 80 feet of waste debris over the top of this liner, and so it needs to perform. So that area is our milestone event number 3 in phase 3. So that's going to take a couple years to get there. That process.
Depth all the way across that they dig down to make it do it?
Very good. Very good question. So see these black lines here are cross sections that we cut through. So this one is 0 to 600 feet here, and this one goes from 0 to 900 feet, left to right, north to south. All right, so the next page, I hope, shows these profiles. So the question is, what is the bottom of the landfill elevation? And so I know this is hard to read, but looking at that one that was north to south, 600 feet, 0 to 600. And so our elevation is the blue line, is the bottom of the landfill. So it starts at natural ground, which is connecting to that black line, and then it dips down. Kind of think of like a bathtub, because that's where we're going to build this waste cell. And so it dips down, and then for 600 feet, the elevation, the bottom of the landfill varies, but it's this represented by this blue line, and it varies from about 510 to 530. So it varies 20 feet over 600 feet. So it's not, it's not steep by any means. It's about 2 or 3% slope, the bottom of the landfill. So that's about just a little bit steeper than a handicap parking space. So it's pitched a little bit, the bottom of the landfill. So again, the bottom of the landfill has, right now we're permitted for a 2 feet. What we have to do is put a 2-foot clay liner at the bottom of the landfill. And also that's what we're going to close the landfills out, is with that qualified liner, bottom and top. And so that qualified liner is on a slope. So if water's not going to get through this liner, but it can hit the bottom or the top of the liner, the bottom of the landfill, and then move at that 2 or 3% to a low point at the perimeter of the landfill. So we can track the bottom of the landfill. We collect any water that rainfall comes through the waste mass and hits the bottom of the landfill. We don't have to with this landfill. We don't have to collect or treat any of that water.
John, you may want to give a little bit of detail on our have over a period of time, also the labor to cover over it with dirt, to cover over it with dirt.
Posi shell. Yeah, so we've got a couple applications to the state. As technology has moved, we're, to the judge's credit and environmental team here, the credit is due to you guys that we're willing to keep up with technology. And so one of the things that we're looking at is this bottom of the landfill, and then what's not shown is the permitted vertical limits of the landfill. So think about it. You got a bottom line and you got a top line in cross section in 3D, however you want to think about it here. And so that's volume space. That's where we can put waste. And that is worth a lot of money. It's worth a lot. It's why we have the landfill. It's why we offer this service to our constituents. And so that volume is very important. So right now we have to build, like I said, a 2-foot clay liner, and it's very expensive. There's a lot of rock, in Garland County, but there's not a lot of clay and there's not a lot of topsoil. So these are things that we need. And it's best if there's a threshold. If we build too large of a waste disposal cell, then and we're not putting waste on it right away, we have to protect it. So that's another layer, that's another thickness. So you got a thick 2-foot bottom liner, and then you've got a protective layer, potentially 6 inches or so of maybe topsoil, another material that's hard to find in Garland County. So maybe you have 30 inches at the bottom of the landfill. And if you think about a landfill that's 21 acres, and that footprint with 30 inches or 24 inches at the bottom, that's a lot. That's the base. That's where your largest volume is. And so we've stolen a lot of our waste disposable volume. So we have 2 applications that the judge mentioned before ADEQ that they're considering. One is a GCL, it's a geocomposite liner, GCL. And so basically it's a very thick membrane. Think visqueen, but times about 10. So it's quite a bit thicker membrane. Then we put a thin layer of bentonite, and which if somehow we pierce that, and then that bentonite is sandwiched with another layer of the thin plastic membrane. So membrane, bentonite, clay layer, thin, and then we have another membrane over the top of that. So if the membrane, which in itself is quite impermissible, but if it was punctured and water was able to get through that plastic and it hit that bentonite, that would swell, and so that would seal off that puncture. It's a neat product, and they come in variations of what I've described, but that's the basics. Is you take 2 feet clay, and you get a better membrane, less permeable membrane at you can do it in 4 inches or so. and that's a neat product. They are expensive, but it is getting popular, and so we're petitioning the state for the option to use that as a bottom liner. If we take bids and our clay and that kind of standard historical practice of constructing the landfill, if we'll have a comparison, because we'll also take an option in the bids for this installation of a GCL. And so it comes in big rolls, big machines, roll it out, and we overlap those. We overlap those about 2 feet horizontally, and we overlap those mats, and that works very well. There's other GCLs that stitch and fusion welds, and there's varieties, and we'll entertain them. But the big picture is we want approval from the state as an option to use GCLs, have that in our arsenal. And the other thing we mentioned is an application for a posi shell. I don't know as much about that. I've not used it yet, but we use soil for a weekly cover. To be compliant with our permit, we have to do it once a week. We do it probably a little bit more than that just to keep a neat house out at the landfill, so we don't have items blown away. And so this is it's a spray, kind of like a hydro seed. You've seen that. It's a spray mechanism. You pull behind like a farm tractor or a bulldozer, and so it sprays, and it's tacky, and so it's just a thin layer. Think about this time of the year, think about pollen and how that just dusts everything, but then add a tacky mixture to that as well. So that's a posi. It's a private product, but that's a posi shell is what they call it. So don't expect any problems with those approvals from the state. And again, it's just an option. It seems like we've got a lot of soil, but I mentioned earlier in the presentation that in the big picture of 50 to 60 years of a landfill, we have a shortage in soil. If we use it for weekly cover, we'll exhaust it. And so later on in phase 4 and phase 5, we'll be needing soil if we don't use posi shell. So it's something that we're really excited about looking at in the future.
Our goal, our ultimate goal is to extend the life of the landfill for as long as we're still being able to operate out of it at the same time. Last sale in phase two built up pretty rapidly last year when we had so much hail damage, so it has made quite a difference in the life of the land. Our goal is to try to provide a better product to make sure that it's not leaking and product put across the top of it, which is not 6 inches thick. Over a period of time, with each lift that we do, we'll save a considerable amount of funding and time with our landfill. Positive impact on Garland County right there, not just our people who live here to have a waste site here that they can take building. Asset for Garland County people. Garland is actually doing a great study for us right now. Where we need to be because our neighboring counties are really way above where we are. So proud of the way this came in our bids last week. And wide variance of numbers. Quite surprising, but we'll see how it works out. I think the high was 2.8 million and the low was 927,000. That's a pretty wide variance on a job like that. We did have two. It came in engineered estimates, so I believe it was a low bidder. They had the biggest equipment. It's something that they can probably do a lot quicker than these other people.
That's right. That's right, Judge. It's the Garrett family, and I think they've moved their headquarters to Benton, but yeah, it's pretty local. They were behind Cornerstone. They built Cornerstone.
It's Grant who runs Gilbert's business now. Hotel that's not really a hotel on the lake. That's the Garrett family.
Yeah.
They've worked here their whole life. They're from here and worked here their whole
They actually built our transfer station, which is up the hill, about right here. So, no,
Any of it? I didn't know.
no, it's very inert, but we're using those soil characteristics. The science of it is the fine grained, and if you were to look through the clay and the bentonite with a microscope, it'd be very fine grains, and we'll line all those up with mechanical equipment, compacting it and moisture, and it just makes it very tight, seals off the weathered shell that we see in this region, which is quite fractured but also hard, and that's why Garrett has an advantage. It's a lot of money, but it's a good price for what we're asking them to do, move 100,000 cubic yards and build a road. We're also building a road, it's really hard to see, I know, but it does go around half the landfill. So we're a part of that project. Kicking off the build of phase 3 is also an access road.
part of it.
Mhm. Yeah, and the judge made a good point that this posi shell, it's such an advantage to if you think about the landfill and there's mattresses and all of the debris is not an even, clean, plain building pad. It's very irregular. And so by permit, we have to put a weekly cover of 6 inches that we've mentioned. Well, that's hard to do. And so you end up putting 2 feet some places, and then you don't want to be short, so you get a little thick to get that coverage, that mandatory coverage. And so this would take that off. We'd save our soils for later in phase 4 and 5, and then we would be able to put that tacky, biodegradable coat there. It's just very, very thin coating.
It should save a lot of man hours and equipment hours too. But spread 6 inches. All that we have to excavate it. trailer that will pull behind, operate the wand and cover the area. A lot of savings to it.
What kind of new equipment would it take to
Trailer,
tank
the
truck?
tank.
Tank.
Yeah, it's a tank with like a hydro seeder. You know, have a wand up on it that they do commercial jobs with, or somebody who's there. Yeah, to get on it. Save that in the first year, probably the cost of that trailer. Start as soon as John's comfortable with the excavating company, wants to visit with them a little bit further.
Nice one of those. Take that one down.
All the same thing we saw in the plans. Really with them, 45 days, 60 days.
We've got it. I hate to ask them to slow down, but we might have to. You know, they're going to move. They're going to move a D11 Caterpillar dozer in here, and they're going to go to work. And by contract, we give them 90 days. So April, May, June. They're consecutive running days, 90 total by contract. Rain days, and maybe the day after a big rain, they get those days back into their contract as makeup days. But but they'll probably clear they'll clear all of this land, which is about 16 acres, to build the road and the phase and and the slopes. We're going to work a little bit into phase 4 so we can make room for the piezometers that we need to install on down the road. But they'll probably get, in 2 weeks, they'll have most of that clear, weather permitting. And then and they'll move 100,000 yards very quickly. I would say 4 weeks to move that. And then they can build the road at the same time, concurrent with all of that. So it's a 2-month, 45, 60 days is what we're expecting with this group.
Starting early, I know some people think starting early, but we still got a lot of steps to go through before any. And the last time we had that permission to use the cell, for about 7 months into the request, and still not received an email back even acknowledging that we had conference call with ADQ. We finally got clearance to open it. And before we can do anything with this, we hopefully in the fall, on our plan that we resubmitted
Correct.
today. I got that today, so hopefully in the fall, August and September, we will come. John said we have to have a year of monitoring of those before they let. They might come in and say, well, we're going to want to do this. It just depends on what our piezometer readings are, is what they come back with.
Mm-hmm.
But we could very easily be 2.5 years out from having the opportunity to use it. May of last year, the kind of shingles that we took in country from the hailstorm, doubling what our daily intake was, 45 to 60 days. And so that a lot of space and cuts you out of a lot of time. Place in Little Rock that used to grind them, but it's, had to reload them. You had many pieces of material. And take it to Little Rock, and then they grind them up. On some asphalt companies actually incorporate them into asphalt, but they can't be parking lots and things of that nature. So cost does it that way to benefit. No, because they're so gummy, they've got so much power in them that it takes a
Mm.
And, part of that is they make. A lot of sell it just gives you insurance. Bottom line or holding up there. Tries to do that.
It protects from erosion, liner investment, and then it also it's a structural. You get some layers of that and the shingles, and it's pretty sound. It's heavy duty.
When I was a young man, back before Moses was born, people would take those shingles, pull all the down up into the driveway because it would stop erosion and it would also keep dust down and eventually run. That's all, so that's hard to really give up.
In our summer heat, it does. So.
This might be a little bit off, same topic, but back, I think during budget, you were talking about this meeting coming up, and we're gonna have to talk about it and so forth. And you mentioned something that, sleep over it, but it stuck in my mind of Hot Spring County and some other counties that are coming over here and filling our landfill at a much lower rate than they can dump in their own. Don't we need to adjust that rate?
That's, Terracon is doing a great study for us right now to make sure that we have the proper rate. So what it is, it's ideally, in my mind, if you're from Garland County, you have proof that you live. That tells me we are way too low them. Bring it here. We haven't got the study back yet. It's Terracon's doing it for us. We hired. Got a lot of work going on. It takes a while. Have a class 4 landfill. You have to load it and take it to a class. For public waste. Because we know. Years that they've been working with. Trash compactor. I have a dozer over this. We did. No, we've actually got a machine. Oh, that's its purpose. It has a blade. And it is equipped with. Right, they got radios, 20 picture right there. Off spots, I can dig it back out. Prior to that, we had some. We budgeted for it. Factory is just like a ice, and they driving across it, it gives you a reading. Well, there's a spot that's soft, there's a spot that's soft, so we need. They can back up, drop their blade, they can push material into it, just like if you're pouring concrete. You have about 7,500 to 8,000. We're trying to get everything. I did. That's the the main part of the presentation was our phase 3 excavation, our expansion of the landfill. One other thing, John,
Mhm.
we put back money each year.
No, that's exactly right. And in that third leg, we need to pick out an area sizable based on the economics at the moment, maybe 18 to 24 months from now. Pick out an area and we'll build that cell for the approval for waste disposal. So that all will take 2 to 3 years. You're right. So, and I mentioned this at the beginning, I wanted to list, just for information and maybe not get into the details, and if we needed to, we could come back and have a more in-depth discussion. But I want to present a list of the things that we're working on behind the scenes. The judge is working on with the landfill and the environmental department. So there's no particular order here. Rate study is on the list. We're working on the rate study. We talked a little bit about how important it is to demonstrate with the piezometers the depth of the groundwater well below our bottom liner. And so we want to know that distance. And the same thing is asked of us to prove where the bedrock is that we know exists. What is the elevation plane of that bedrock? So we want to know where that is. And so we're working to answer that for permit compliance with the landfill. So another item that we want to do is, I know it's hard to see, but phase 1 in this area and this slope, remember it's 3D, we're going up on this mountain of waste mass and weakly covered. The slope, the side slope of this landfill, which is limited by this blue outline, the perimeter of the permit of the landfill. So it's an area that's approved for closure. We can close that out with a qualified liner over the top. And that's a process. And so we call it partial closure. A lot of benefits to that. We can call it good and watch it over 2 years of monitoring and some maintenance. And then it falls out of our financial assurance that we have to insure as a county. And so we can spend money elsewhere on roads and bridges, and maybe not so much on financial assurance, insuring this landfill by doing a partial closure. So that's a big process that we've budgeted for it, and we want to work through that with the environmental service group. Piezometer work plan, we've talked about that. Every year, another item here is an annual engineering inspection report, AEIR. Every year, we do basically a State of the Union address of the landfill, and we really get into the details of the 3D models, the math, where we're at, where we're going, and all the predictions. And so that's a annual engineering inspection report. It's available to the public. We file that report every year, and that paints the picture of what we need to do as far as planning, and that's really how we got here to needing to work towards opening phase 3. But that report's very valuable. Over the years, ADQ has worked with Garland County, and we've made that. It used to be we would try to get. It seemed like the report would get hundreds of pages long, and so now it's about 12 pages, and it's a lot of information, and it's very regimented in that every year it's the line items are the same, so you can compare how much waste we disposed of year after year, how much weekly cover we utilized. So it captures those things. Annual engineering inspection report, that's due at the end of June for the previous year, 2023. This whole facility is managed also by the Water Division, and Miss Shelley Tucker here at Garland County, ADQ Water Division, we've got a permit, and so that has a 5-year renewal cycle for that permit, and that's due February 2nd of 2025. So we're working on that to be ahead of that renewal moment in early February, this coming February. So the stormwater, and there's also annual compliance and actions related to stormwater, in addition to what we've talked about at this meeting with waste disposal. We've mentioned the posi shell alternative cover. We've also mentioned the minor permit for the GCL geocomposite liner that we're working on. Judge, we're also working on the transfer station at Garland County, 70 West, Highway 70 West transfer station. And there's a few other miscellaneous items, but those are the big tickets that we're working on. Annual engineering inspection report. And so all of the solid waste facilities across the state of Arkansas have to report, make an AEIR report, even our transfer stations, but it's very detailed on the landfills. Annual engineering inspection report, and ADEQ puts those on their database. And one of the things that we do in those reports is we talk about all the numbers and the volumetrics that we mentioned, but we also elaborate on inspections, or if there is any deficiencies that's noted by the quarterly inspections from the state. We just rarely have any issues with the state, but all of that is addressed in that annual report as well, summarized and discussed. If there are any issues, again, we just don't have many issues, so it's not as many pages as some other facilities. That's true. Yeah, I graduated in '98 and went to work on this landfill. We finished up Wildcat Road, and I started drawing a lot of lines on this. And I wasn't a registered engineer at the time, but I've stayed with it, and I appreciate the county letting me do that. So over a couple decades, been working on this. Real proud of it. It's a great facility, but it's the judge and the tight ship and Mr. Sawyer out at the landfill in the trenches working on it. It's really leading a great facility. So No. Well, and yeah, Billy reads everything that we publish, all those annual engineering inspection reports, and Billy reads all of that and asks good questions and some challenges in there, which is very healthy for our operations. So that's all I have. I've passed my business card. If you need anything or any of these slides or more detail, I can really nerd out on some of the technical components. So I'm better at that than presentations. But thank you, and Crafton and told John Rogers if you have any questions. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Judge, I take it that
AEI.
AER report is available online here? Okay.
As you go to ADEQ website, you can pull it up. And they're due in February, March 30th.
So the components, the financial assurance is a big component of the annual engineering inspection report is due at the end of March. The actual report.
No, bring it back over here.
This one. Oh.
I just want to plug it into the printer. Talk to the AD. I'll have for after tonight, if he's gonna come in the morning.
Let's work through those. That's your screen, so it's.
I'm talking about this and over here. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, John. Is there any new business? Anyone? Old business? Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, so, Justice Dixon wants to talk to us a bit about the spring cleanup that we do in the spring. It'll be a little bit different this year. It probably won't be quiet and steady because our track crew that we hired last year will make around about that time before they start. Probably what I will do is get with them and get a list. I don't know if you've driven down a lot of county roads, but they seem to be doing highways, and the county roads already now are inmate cleanup highways, trying to get the bypass and 70. And our crew that have that's the job. They're really getting a lot of response from the public when they're out there on the road picking the stuff up. They got signs and everything. Very appreciative of the fact that we're trying to do things like that.
The 28th. And we will be providing volunteers.
Yes, we've got some of that left from last year, and I'll reach out to you. bags. I know last year the trash bag we used was over us. They ran through pretty quick, so we'll try to get some better trash bags this time. I think it's worth a lot to just get involved in the schools. A lot of peer pressure, so that maybe when this guy's throwing stuff out the window, somebody else. I just had to pick that up. And we throwing it out there. I don't know. You got to start with something, and obviously can't keep it all picked up all the time. So, but educate.
I don't know that we can do anything about it on county level, but I remember living in Texas at the time that they started that program, Don't Mess with Texas. And they made it a point to go out and to actively enforce that law. I mean, they were pulling people over left and right for throwing stuff out the window or letting them blow out of the back of their truck, whether it was a pickup truck or not. Now, that got a lot of bad publicity, but it also sent a message to everybody who read the paper or who watched the TV news that if you were littering, you were going to get pulled over. And it was amazing how quickly it started cleaning up. It's a matter of commitment and doing it. And maybe we as a county ought to ask the state to, let's get a little more enforcement. Let's get a heavy draconian sort of point of view with the enforcement. And maybe we won't have this problem, because I've seen them pick up trash along the MLK and you come back 2 weeks later maybe, and it looks like the devil in some places. Just no reason for it.
Must have a blueprint.
Like to be on Tuesday that week. This week I think so we'll probably try to.
Oh my gosh.
Probably try to make sure that.
I think it'd be all right if we started contacting the school districts within our areas and asking them if they want to get queued up.
I was gonna reach out to the school, the superintendent, and let all of them know that we're doing again for.
Thank you, Esther. Anything else? No,
Move to adjourn.
we're adjourned.